We have a society in which there are an awful lot of people who have no idea that Stalin, Hitler, Mao Zedong all came to power promising the same kinds of things that Ms. Ocasio-Cortez is promising, and it led to mass murder, led to dictatorship, it led to genocide. These promises are old promises, and they invariably lead to bad things.
Wow. Welcome back to Harvard. That was political commentator Ben Stein making an historic comparison to remember. But Stein is just one member of the chorus attacking first-term Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York. Actor and conservative activist James Woods described the Congresswoman as, quote, the most dangerous person in America right now. And he warned, forget the FBI list, most wanted list, ignore her at your peril. I'm joined now by U.S. Democratic Congressman from California, Barbara Lee, and Jason Johnson, politics editor for TheRoot.com. Congresswoman, you're right in the middle of this. What do you think on the Democratic caucus side when one member becomes the target for all this hate?
Well, first of all, the hate is disgusting, but that's who they are. The Honorable AOC, she is actually really engaging with young people. She's really bringing forth optimism and a lot of energy and creativity, and she's connecting with people, and that's what we need. That's what our democracy needs, Chris. And so we're seeing more new voters, more younger people really beginning to understand what their government is about, and that's for the people.
We've got candidates running for president. Martin O'Malley, for example, I think is running again. And John Delaney would kill for publicity like this.
Yes.
They don't get any attention. And then she's out there brilliantly, obviously getting support in the progressive community, but also drawing fire. I mean, Ben Stein's a guy with brains. What do you call him? Stalin, Hitler, Mao Zedong?
He should stick to old game shows and 80s teen flicks, right? I really think that the criticism of Ocasio, it comes from two sections. One, you've got the sort of angry, trollish, incel Republicans who just hate seeing a charming Latina woman who's in a position of power. The other side, I think, is jealous Republicans. She's like Dennis Rodman or Gronkowski. You hate her because she's not on your side. Republicans wish they could find a young, dynamic, charismatic member of Congress who can make policy instead of just trolling people online.
Well, they did have an interesting person in Utah, Mormon Utah. They had Mia Love. And unfortunately, they didn't really treasure her enough, according to her. They didn't back her. What do you think about the positive influence? You're a progressive. What's the positive influence of her?
The positive influence primarily take what she is able to do with young people and organize and really bring people in so they get to understand their government, how their government functions, and that they are part of this democracy. So many people feel disconnected from Washington and from their government. Also, she has many ideas, and she's putting these ideas into practice, into policies that are really going to change in this country. She's dealing with systemic issues, institutional issues. You know, Trump didn't start all the bad stuff that's happening in this country. And so we have some basic...
He didn't start the Iraq War.
You're right about that. You're right about that. And so she's addressing some of the basic reforms and changes that this country needs at its core.
Well, let's talk politics, because politics has gotten under Trump especially. That is one thing that's changed. Nicknames, personal attacks, no more of just an ideological battle, which is legitimate, which we'd love to have.
Right.
Why are they going after her personally, making fun of her? It's almost like she's getting the Pocahontas treatment pretty early.
Oh, yeah. Well, like I said, they're afraid. She is a Latino woman. She's Puerto Rican. And you have to remember that the sort of whipping boy of this administration has been Latinos, even more so than black people. And I can say that objectively. Mexicans are this, and these people are that, and how they're treating Puerto Rico with these sort of white nationalist policies.
Are Americans.
Exactly. This administration doesn't treat them as if they are. So Ocasio-Cortez is not only a member of Congress, but she's someone who can powerfully speak back against these issues. And here's the thing, Chris, in 2020, millennials are going to be the largest voting population. You need someone like that at the forefront.
My hunch, and you're the politician, you're the expert on this too, is that the Democratic fight for the nomination is going to be focused on African-American women. It's going to be focused on young people, people on the left, if you will, the progressives. It's going to be there. It's not going to be all white guys about this
it's going to
thing.
be there, but it's going to be those candidates who can bring the country together. And certainly, African-American women have been the backbone and the most consistent and smartest voters, really, quite frankly, of the Democratic Party.
Is this payday? All these years, I mean to say positively, all the years of backing white males for public office,
It's not payday so much as it is black women, women of color, women can lead. We can lead this country, we can lead the world, and our experience brings that to the table and coming up with new ideas.
How's the glass ceiling doing right now? Still there?
Well, listen, we elected 113 women into Congress this last November. We have more women of color, more people of color ever. We have a more diverse Congress, and so I see this as a positive, and we're moving forward.
You're one of the leaders. You're one of the pioneers. I mean, you're not that old, but you're a pioneer. Anyway, U.S. Congresswoman Barbara Lee of Oakland and Berkeley and all those great places, and Jason Johnson. When we return to look.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.